We're here with our project Silver Bullet. Today, we erase this front suspension and put the all new stuff in. Hey, I'm Steve here with Damian Braze. Today we're going to be working on the 66 Charger we call Silver Bullet. We're going to be doing what, Damian?
We're installing our full coilover front suspension, adding rack and pinion, and along the way we're going to do a brake upgrade.
Ooh, we get to remove the torsion bars too.
Oh, those things are gone.
That's a good time. All right, well, let's get started.
All right. So we got the lower control arms off, spindles, upper arms are off the car. When we were taking the driver's side off, the bushing actually slid off of the pivot shaft, so the pivot shaft is still attached to the K-member. This one's in here pretty solid yet, but this is one of the reasons that you don't want to just put coilovers on your factory arms and get rid of the torsion bars. That pivot shaft is just pressed into that bushing, and in this case, stuff got old, it fell apart. So we need to get these bushings installed in the engine mounts. Pretty simple. There are stickers in here marking them right and left. And these are going to bolt in to the K-member and then bolt to the engine block. Let's get it put on, Steve.
Okay. Hey, Damian, we have an oil leak. Why?
Well, it's kind of handy. We have to change the oil pan.
Oh, why?
So some big blocks, this one being some, require the use of a different oil pan. We're going to put the recommended Milodon pan on here so we have steering rack clearance.
Yeah, I
here.
noticed that steering rack clearance between that guy and this guy is pretty narrow.
It's not going to fit with the spacers supplied in the kit.
Oh. All right, I figured out why we have an oil leak.
Okay. Can you fix the rest of them?
No, too big of a task for me. Well, we're preparing our lower control arms. They are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which side of the car they go on. We've got the rod ends that will go into the end of the arm. Jam nut on first. I always like to use a little bit of anti-seize on the threads. And then we're going to screw all of these in to the point where there's about 1 or 2 threads showing behind this jam nut. So we'll get that all prepared and keep moving along. We've pulled out the steering rack that comes with the suspension setup. Now this is based on a Fox body Mustang, however, it needs to be just a little bit wider. So we're going to be taking off the dust boots here and installing these rack extensions, then reinstalling the tie rod ends. We've got new boots, zip ties to hold those on. and then we'll be ready to put it into the car. In our rack extension kit, you'll see this coupler. It's a rubber coupler. What I've done is I've brought the geared end out of this steering rack so that we can clamp to it. Of course, you don't want to clamp onto the shaft itself. You'll mar it up, may not seal again. But once we've got this clamped with the rubber coupler, then we can simply remove this tie rod. After that guy's out, we're going to take the tie rod extension. Snug that on. Then replace our tie rod end. We'll do this for both sides. Put the new boots on with the zip ties. Then we'll be ready to install it into the car.
Yesterday, Steve and I got all the factory suspension pulled out. The QA1 suspension is in. We've got to get the brakes on, get that wrapped up. The steering shaft needs to be connected to the column yet. Once those two things are done, we can get this thing set on the ground and check out the new ride height. Moving inside the car, I'm going to pull the steering column out. We've got to put a bearing in the base of the column to support the shaft, and then cut the steering shaft off so we can get our new U-joints put on and get our new steering shaft built. One of the last things that we've got to do on the Silver Bullet is modify the steering column so we can get the new rack connected. We're going to have to cut the steering shaft off. We've got a bearing that slides in the base of the column to support it, and then we'll need to attach the U-joint to the shaft itself. Now that the shaft's cut off, we can get our bearing in there. On this particular Charger, it has a non-collapsible steering column, and those are at 3/4 inch diameter shafts. So I put a bushing in here to reduce our 1 inch bearing down to a 3/4 so it slides on. You need to press this into the base of the column, and then we can get our U-joint on there and get that attached. This U-joint's a little bit tight, and generally that happens when the ears on the yoke get pressed down around the bearing. They're a little cocked. Way to fix that, and this will work on a drive shaft in a car too. Just tap the yoke and it frees it right up. So use that the next time you have to replace a U-joint. Here's all the parts that came out of the Silver Bullet. Car's back on the ground. Let's get it outside and take a good look at it. Now that the Silver Bullet's back on the ground, we're gonna do some tuning on the shocks, get the car aligned, and get the car out and drive it, get a good feel for it. In the meantime, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, visit us on social media, and go drive it.
I kind of wanted the effect of the damn oil coming out.
Why is the oil not draining?